The future is vegan.
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 Hi everyone, it's Jessica, your favorite vegan, and today we'll be going over why I am and will always be an imperfect activist. So what does imperfect mean? Imperfect is kind of striving away from that idea of perfection and getting away from this image of what a perfect activist should look like, or, what they should do. So in this episode, I'll touch base on the imperfect aspects of animal activism and why they really are so important for really implementing and kind of bringing across these ideas. So I hope everybody's having a great week. It was really chaotic, and I'm really happy that it's Friday, so that's really awesome. So today, the first point we're going to talk about is why it's really harmful to strive for perfection. So we all know what perfection's like, striving for that A+, striving to be something sometimes more than we are. And I think it's really important to not even dismantle, but to shatter this belief or this perception of perfection, because it's really important to move past that and to find how much we can give for that day. So on an everyday basis, we can give as much as we have. So today I can give more than I could yesterday, for instance. So even with running, I love putting running analogies because I'm a running enthusiast, but today maybe I can run a faster pace than yesterday, but as long as I'm giving everything I can at the moment, that's the most important thing. So it's really important to not strive for perfection, but to really give all that we can into our activism without draining our mental health or taking away from other aspects of our message. So I think it's harmful to strive for perfection in animal activism because, it's really imperfect. Your activism is as unique as you, and you want to implement and bring across a message that not only directs a meaningful approach to your viewers, you want to consider your audience, your demographic, but most importantly, it's important to really give everything that you can in the moment and to never give less than that, never give more than that, and find your healthy threshold. So next, let's talk about what does perfect activism look like in the scope of animal activism. So I would say perfect animal activism I've seen before, and I don't see it a lot, but it's usually when we find ourselves, looking against somebody on social media for their animal activism, like, wow, I really wish I was doing that. Could I be doing more? And it's really about, taking a second to breathe and finding your ground. So I try to limit social media to this extent. Of course, I use social media to connect with friends and whatnot, but I try to limit it for healthy reasons because, comparison is really the thief of joy. So when we continuously compare ourselves to other activists and, maybe even they perceive themselves as, imperfect and look up to another idealized figure in the animal activism community. So it's important to dismantle that belief that, everybody has a unique form of activism to them. So for mine, I love writing. Writing is something amazing. I love doing it. And creative writing is definitely something I want to explore in my future. It's really liberating for me. And, the liberating aspect to me came so natural that I kind of touched a little bit more base on this in my previous podcast. But when you find something that's so close to home, it can become ineffective in your activism. So powerful writing is potent. Honestly, it's powerful, it's to the point, and it can drive meaningful change. But if you use that and, if you're almost using writing as your primary form of activism and hiding behind that screen, it's important to find something that feels like growth to you. That doesn't mean going from writing behind the screen to hosting a major demonstration. It could be that, but most cases it's not. For me, I want to find something that makes me comfortable. So I think for your activism, you want to find something that's inspiring growth and not stagnance. So for me, as much as I enjoyed writing, I wrote about animal activism because that's important, that's powerful, and I also advocated for it on social media and pages. And whether that was creating my own hub, Bergen County SOS, and the first one in Bergen County and New Jersey for the matter. But there's so many cool things that you can do. And, it's almost like a matter of a playground. I heard this analogy and it's really, really stuck with me. I heard it yesterday in a YouTube video. So it's essentially this idea that everything, your opportunities are like a playground, and you have the choice you could go on the swings all day, that's your choice, or you could climb on the monkey bars or whatnot, but you have the choice to do whatever you want. And, if something may feel barriered in a way, or you may feel like, oh, I don't really know if I can do that, you have the choice to go on the monkey bars. You have the choice to go on the swings. So for me, I had the choice to explore and create something meaningful. I didn't think I could create a powerful hub, and I thought that nobody would join my efforts. And eventually, I did get some people. I can talk about for a while the couple months when I was the only member of Bergen County SOS. But if I didn't have those months of, waiting in the Zoom meeting and, whatnot, they wouldn't have propelled me to the moment where, I'm expecting more people and I can talk to more people and reach new audiences. So that moment of, almost giving up and, are people actually listening to me? And finding out and staying with my cause. And when I chose to stay on the swings, when I chose to advocate on my Instagram platform, Bergen County SOS, I was, drawing people to my staying at the swings. So once they saw me there, they were motivated by the cause. And, maybe they wanted to go on the swings too. They wanted to explore this cause. So essentially, we were all going on the swings, and we all, really enjoy the efforts of Bergen County SOS. So that's really important to me. And whether we take it in a literal or, put it in a different perspective, it's really important to see that activism is true to you. So whether you have the flexibility, really, essentially, that you can do whatever makes you feel good and that brings across your message in the most meaningful way. So the next point I mentioned is the best activism is as unique as you. So I'm sure that there are many people that don't like writing for their activism. Writing the school summer reading essay is a dread, but I think the most unique activism is one that's original to you. So what that means is essentially finding something that excites you and using that in a meaningful way. So let's say that you really, really, really love to draw. You can use your drawing to advocate for animals. I've seen this in so many cases, and with animal advocacy contests, to kind of like showcase them. You can have the opportunity to use your art to make a difference. And whether that sticker is splattered on somebody's laptop or used online as a PDF that somebody can search up, copy paste screenshot, there's endless possibilities, and your art can make a meaningful change in your community. And actually, art is really cool because it's not just in your community, but it can be spread everywhere. Art is so awesome because it can be appreciated for what it is, and the artist itself taking the time in for the work, just like creative writing. Like when you read a really awesome piece, I'm not just thinking about the beautiful words or the narrative on the story, but I also think about the author and, why exactly what really inspired them to write this story in this compelling tale. So that really kind of enriched my mindset. So the best activism to me is creative writing. And, I love it. And also, using my voice on Bergen County SOS. If you're not familiar with Bergen County SOS, it stands for Bergen County Students Opposing Speciesism. Speciesism is essentially a discrimination of species based on their discrimination of animals based on their species. So that means, for instance, we could be eating pig for dinner, but we won't eat some other animals, like domesticated house animals. So honestly, Bergen County SOS really hopes to dismantle this idea of speciesism. It's not necessarily about forcing politicians or whatnot to bring across change, but it's about using a student-by-student platform to advocate for this change. So this would mean, there's a Starbucks surcharge going on. They're charging extra money for extra costs for plant-based milk versus cow's milk, and this is unfair. It's not unfair in the aspect of getting everybody to go vegan, but it's unfair because it's unequal. So we're trying to create equal options and then allowing consumers, essentially presenting them the knowledge to make their own decision. Do you want plant-based milk? by viewing our story and like why it's important, or do you want to have cow's milk? And honestly, we can't do anything more than allow the consumer to have that choice, but we present the knowledge. So that's what Bergen County SOS does. We give the knowledge to help consumers make a meaningful choice every time they go into a grocery store and every time they eat a meal 3 times a day. So next, I want to talk about your activism is valid. So I've heard this phrase a lot. I'm sure you have too. Your feelings are valid. This is valid. And what does that really mean? So when you say that something is valid, you're saying that it's true. It's set in stone. So how are your feelings like set in stone? How are they true? So that's essentially acceptance. And I think that this validation is acceptance, not necessarily like feeding off of it. Like, for instance, sports-related validation, academic validation. It's essentially, self-assurance that your feelings are recognized. Your feelings are of great concern. So I think that your activism, whether some people discredit it or not, or if people have other opinions about it, it's absolutely true. Your actions are paving change for a more species-free society. It's absolutely bringing across change. So I think that, every activist does contribute in their own ways. And as I said before, there truly is no perfect way of activism. There's not only one method. You can be an incredible animal activist in any different sector of this branch. I think the creativity in this movement is something that really drives me to continue, not only for my moral beliefs, but it drives me to continue speaking about it, advocating for it on the podcast. So I think it's really important. And yeah, so your activism is valid, it's important, and the feelings that you do that carry with you, let's say on Thanksgiving or whatnot, they're absolutely valid. And I try to carry an open mind with me because, I used to eat meat too. I used to consume eggs and dairy. I wasn't perfect. I never was. I never am. And I think it's important to carry this open mindset in everything. I don't think it's important to be abrasive with other people. And that's just my own opinion. And I think your activism should reflect how you would have wanted yourself before learning or presented with this knowledge that, for instance, Bergen County SOS brings across. So before you got that knowledge, how would you have wanted to be presented? Would you have wanted to be approached by somebody brash, mean? Or would you have wanted somebody that's understanding and trying to provoke a meaningful message? I would listen to the latter option, honestly. I'm not really listening to somebody that's going to tell me that I'm outwardly wrong and, provide no constructive feedback other than a denunciation of my values. So I think it's very important to understand. And next, I wanted to talk about that no active activism is too small. That's like alliteration almost, but no active activism is too small. No, wait, that's a tongue twister. But it essentially means that regardless of what you do in your activism, it's still valid and it's still, making change in the community. Whether you hand out flyers at the local grocery store or you even go to your local park versus hosting a countywide or huge, sponsoring a huge event and protesting at a crazy animal rights event or whatnot. So they're both acts of animal activism. One is not better than the other. You're both making change. Either if it's on a local scale, a national scale, they both make change in different communities, different sectors, if you must. So it's important to recognize both of them are different, but there is a difference and they're both appreciated. So next, oh my gosh, I wanted to talk about a tale of activism burnout. So I used to struggle with activism burnout when I first became vegan, and I think it really ties in with this theme of imperfection because I used to be the person that I'm telling you trying to not be, telling you to strive not to be. So I used to, in the beginning of my animal activism, and I explained this a little bit more in my other podcast, but I can put a little bit of detail here. So I decided to go vegan for moral reasons, and it started at a 5K, actually. My mom was there, and there was a shirt, and it had a turkey on it with a knife, and it kind of made me upset, and I was a vegetarian at the time. I was a vegetarian since I was somewhere between 11 and 12, So it was like really important to me, but I didn't really see the connection between the dairy and the meat industry. And essentially, I became vegan that day. Ever since I ran that race, right after I finished it, I was like, I want to become vegan because I'm being a hypocrite. Well, for me, I felt hypocritical in my values. So I was very firm in my vegetarian belief set. And then eventually, for me, I was able to connect the dots. I was able to put the puzzle pieces together. And no, it wasn't my push to veganism wasn't PETA. My push to veganism wasn't an animal rights group. It was myself. And when I made the switch and I made the connection, that's how I made the change. And I think that's true for everyone else. So it's not going to take to become vegan, forcing somebody else or telling somebody immediately. They need to make that connection on themselves. So back to the story of the tale of activism burnout. So it was early into my veganism. I really liked it. At first, I messed up a lot. Like, there were Belvita bars that contained milk, and there were Orgain drinks that I did not know contained milk. So for the first couple of days, I was consuming those only because I knew that some items blatantly had egg and milk. So I was just consuming bars and milk. And then I realized after looking at the nutrition label, why does it say grass-fed? Oh, wait, because it's actual milk. So I felt really guilty, and I started actually learning how the vegan lifestyle should look. So I started including more plants, veggies, and I would have these amazing, really big, plates of corn, green beans, I would have like small pieces of Beyond Meat shuffled in there because my mom showed me a really cool recipe, and there were some really awesome things. So I was getting putting my feet in the water a little bit with veganism, so it was great. But eventually, I was really caught up when I was starting Bergen County SOS. So that was like in October of that year. So about last year at this time. Actually, this is a perfect time to talk about this. So I was starting Bergen County SOS a year ago. And I was really nervous. I had to fill out a lot of forms. I did an interview. I love the program. It's awesome. But the thing was, I was just very, I had to talk a lot about my values and what they meant to me. So I was really caught up in a lot of things. There was a lot of different factors at play. And eventually, the upsetness, or not the upsetness, the tension that I held about this topic really struck me. And I decided that it was too much for me at the moment because, the animal advocacy was taking over my life. And I feel that it's really important to strike a perfect balance between your activism and your life. I don't prioritize one over the other because they're both important, and you can't become an effective activist without prioritizing your mental health. So I took time off, and as I said before, I love to run. A crazy idiosyncratic thing about me. It's probably not idiosyncratic, but it's crazy. It's not fun, but I love doing it. And for running, that was a great part of me. And, because I was in this state of burnout for a couple of weeks, I didn't really have the motivation to do stuff that I loved. And I took time away from running, and, I took some time to my thoughts. And I came together to the conclusion that I don't need to be that perfect activist that I see on Instagram or I see on my feed, because I'm myself, and that's the greatest activist I can be. I can put forth everything I have today, and maybe it's less than yesterday, sure. Maybe it's more than tomorrow, cool. But honestly, it's everything I can give, and whether somebody else is, paving more change, that's awesome because it's making even more progress in our community. We all have the same cause. It's not all about pitting one another against each other. Pitting one of us against each other, and it's really about collectiveness. And that's why I say there's this phrase thrown a lot in the vegan community. It's consistent anti-oppression. So that essentially shows our unity, and we're consistently against societal oppressions and whatnot. So for me, after I realized that I don't need to be perfect, I took the time off, and maybe getting back into my runs. It started as a walk, but that walk eventually, that whisper turned into a tremor, a scream, and I started to run it now, and I even ran a mile PR. So I had a lot of really awesome things happen to me during that time of learning about myself and learning about my activism. So I found the ground again, and I became my own imperfect version of myself, my own imperfect veganism. So, the next thing I want to talk about is how can you actively become an imperfect vegan like me? So I think imperfect veganism is very important, and it teaches us a lot of important lessons about ourselves and about our cause. So it's about prioritizing your mental health. It's not only about that, but you also have to find a method of activism that works for you. You don't have to do social media infographics. You don't have to creatively write. You don't have to host demonstrations. Find something that works for you. And to actively become an imperfect vegan, you need to kind of distance yourself from this image of perfectionism. So if you see other people, becoming the epitome of veganism to you, you're in murky waters. So you want to make sure that you kind of prioritize yourself and, find this activism that works for you. Activism is different for all of us. And, some people are more involved than others, but I'm still making a change, and everybody else is still making a change. So that's really all that matters. So finally, we're going to talk about how did this change in mindset impact me for the better. So after talking and reflecting on the vegan experience, the activism burnout story, I think that it's helped me maintain a healthier clarity about my everyday life, about myself, my everyday actions. So it's really improved my mental health. I'm in a great state of mind. I'm feeling really great, and prioritizing my mental health and my activism for other animals, keeping them on a equal pedestal. That's really been the changing factor for me. It's really been the drive to consistently come out here, podcast consistently. No meat for me, no cheese. And, maybe that means I only have a protein bar in my cabinet. I will not eat something that's not vegan. And I think it's really important for me to adapt this mindset because it's not only beneficial for my mental health, as I previously described, but it propels me to growth. And I bring this up a lot, and you probably heard it before, the growth versus stagnance, but it really holds so much truth. So if you want to seek growth, you want to become a better activist, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to seek growth. So for me, instead of going into this mindset of perfect activist, I have to be perfect, I decided to seek growth. And for me, that was implementing my creative writing with a dabble in Bergen County SOS, starting something that was meaningful to me. Maybe wasn't understood by a lot of people, but eventually I got my audience. And not only did I garner an audience, but I met a lifelong group of friends, companions, my pets, and a lot of really awesome things. So I just want to talk about how this change has really propelled me to something even greater. So this is it. And, I'm ready for anything. So I don't edit my words. And this kind of shows my imperfect aspect of veganism. And I'm not striving to be a perfect activist. I never was, and I never will be. But overall, I'm just seeking growth. That's all I can do, and that's all we can do. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.